Welcome back. This is T-Street Controversy, T-Street Controversy Live of RealCombatMedia.com along with Be Real TV. And today we're going to talk about PBC on NBC. It's also going to be PBC on Box Nation as it stands right now, March the 7th, 2015. You're going to have Robert "The Ghost" Guerrero. What is he? 32-2 with 18 KOs versus Keith "One-Time" Thurman, who is 25-0 with 21 KOs. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This is a video where we're going to have split views because I have Robert Guerrero winning, even though Keith Thurman, you can say, is the more skilled boxer, but yet I'm going to say that he's unproven. That's just my opinion. Now, when it comes to me, I cover every single major fight live. So what that means is I'm watching those fights along with you and doing a video immediately after it ends. So therefore, what I see is when I see Keith Thurman, I see a fighter who is still somewhat unproven. Now, when you look at Robert "The Ghost" Guerrero, when you look at Vicente Escobedo, when you look at Orlando Salido, when you look at Celso Gaidin, Robert Guerrero, Floyd Mayweather, even most recently Yoshihiro Kamagai, he's had some very big fights. If you look at the fact that, well, look, he's been to 126 pounds and now he's fighting at 147 and he's brought his power with him, even though he hasn't had any knockouts still. You know, look what he did to Andre Bertozzi. You know, look at the way he handled himself in his first fight at 147 against Celso Gaidin. Look what he did against Yoshihiro Kamagai, who's a guy who has fought at 154 pounds multiple times. Just my opinion, Keith Thurman is good, but Keith Thurman won't be, put it this way, Keith Thurman won't have my full support of a fan saying that, oh yeah, he can beat this person, he can beat Marcos Maidana, he can beat a Floyd, man. I'm not saying none of that. I'm not saying he's going to beat an American. I'm not saying he's going to beat no Amir Khan. I'm not saying he's going to beat no Floyd Mayweather. I'm not saying he's going to beat no Marcos Maidana. I'm just not doing it. So if he's want to prove something to me, he's in the biggest fight of his career. He's got that WBA world. It's that WBA world belt. Remember, Floyd has the real 147-pound belt. He's fighting a former Floyd Mayweather opponent in Robert Guerrero on national television in the main event. So this has exposed all over it. If he loses on Saturday night, March the 7th, 2015 on Al Heyman's PBC on NBC, that's not going to be me. I'm going to get up here and talk about the fight. I'm going to get up here and say what he did wrong. But guess what? The title's going to say exposed. You know, that's just my personal opinion. Just my personal opinion.
Right, okay. I'm going to strongly disagree with you, T-Street, and I'm going to explain why. I think that you're not giving enough credit to Keith Thurman for what he's currently done in boxing. I think that everybody wants to talk about that Keith Thurman is unproven, but I mean, did he not beat Diego Chavez? Did he not beat Jesus Soto Caras, who was looking very good? And then he's beaten an undefeated fighter in Leonard Bundu, which gives us a reading on on Keith "One-Time" Thurman. Julio Diaz, he was coming off 2 fights against Sean Porter and Amir Khan, who in all 3 fights, Julio Diaz did do pretty well, especially in the first fight against Sean Porter and in the fight against Amir Khan. And then you take a look at someone like Diego Chavez, who had that tremendous fight with Timothy Bradley, and we look into that fight. So then he's going to face Brandon Rios on top of that as well. And I know they weren't, all wins, but, Diego Chavez, we know he's a tremendous good fighter. I mean, if you put Diego Chavez in at 147 with any of the top 10, I mean, Diego Chavez is not going to be a tremendous underdog in any of them fights. He's going to be alive, unless it's Mayweather Pacquiao or one of the elite. But still, Diego Chavez is a very formidable opponent, and I keep saying Mayweather. Keith Thurman beat him. But we're talking about Robert "The Ghost" Guerrero, and I just want to calm down, relax, kick it back a little bit, because I'm very excited about Keith Thurman. I'll tell you why. You see, Muhammad Ali, before he faced Sonny Liston, and you know what, I'm not even going to give it example after example after example, but history in boxing has proven that many times a person has come up and a lot of people thought that he was going to be good and a lot of people wanted him to fall, and that guy has come and annihilated the fighter that he was meant to lose against. And I think Keith Thurman against Robert Guerrero, I think Keith Thurman is going to rise to the occasion. I think in this fight, Keith Thurman's footwork, I mean, you were talking about Andre Berto and how Robert Guerrero bust up Andre Berto, but here's the thing. Robert Guerrero is coming from a lower weight class. The bigger puncher out of the two is definitely Keith Thurman. Yeah, Robert Guerrero has a chin, but Robert Guerrero gets tagged a lot. Not only that, Robert Guerrero did not look that good against Kamigai in his last fight. And styles make fights, and I think that if you're a fighter who and you leave your chin exposed and you leave your face open and you are able to get tagged, Keith Thurman is not the fighter you want to fight, because Keith Thurman is going to cause you some severe long-term brain damage. I understand what people are saying about Keith Thurman, that he struggled against Leonard Bundu, but I mean, if you go and check out my interview with Keith Thurman, I covered all these issues. We'll put the interview in the description box below for all the people who are watching it on T Street's channel. If you're watching Be Real TV, I'll try and put it there as well. But like, I just want to say, and I'm gonna give it back to you, T Street. But I think with Keith Thurman, when we went over his last fight against Leonard Bundu, he said that Leonard Bundu was a bit awkward. Leonard Bundu came to make 12, basically, that he felt Keith Thurman's power and he went to a shell. But I think Keith Thurman has stopped better fighters than Leonard Bundu, and I think that Robert Guerrero, I think he's going to get tagged with some very hard shots. I think he's going to leave his face exposed. I think Keith Thurman has much better footwork. In his last 6 fights, out of Keith Thurman, Amir Khan and Mayweather Jr., Keith Thurman was the person who got hit the least out of the bunch. So I don't see slow, flat-footed Robert Guerrero, who really did not even stand a chance at Mayweather Jr., who didn't even land a punch, who probably did the worst out of all of the last fights against Mayweather Jr. Robert Guerrero did the worst. I don't see how Keith Thurman loses to this person. I think Keith Thurman's footwork's going to be too much, and he's going to step on the gas sometimes and really bang Robert Guerrero's head about, and it's just going to be Robert Guerrero's going to be a punching bag.
I think it's about if Keith Thurman is going to use the footwork. And it is true. I've addressed it in multiple videos that Robert Guerrero is not the same fighter that he used to be. Once he jumped up to 147 pounds, skipping 2 weight divisions, and jumping 2 weight divisions, he became this brawler, slugger, CrossFit guy. I don't really know, but the boxing ability of Robert Guerrero is there, and the benefit of being a southpaw boxer. He used to have, and I say used to have because he doesn't use it anymore. Used to have a machine-like jab. But now, I look at it like this: if Robert Guerrero can somehow be the hybrid of the person he is today and the person he used to be, and for a fight like this, he knows that he's going up against a guy who is using him as a stepping stone. I mean, let's face it. Keith Thurman is, Al Heyman is using Keith Thurman. Let's talk about it. Al Heyman is using Keith Thurman. Using Robert Guerrero as a stepping stone for Keith Thurman. So basically telling Robert Guerrero, all right, listen, I'll put you on PBC, on NBC, national television. You got to fight Keith Thurman. And remember, a year ago, Robert Guerrero didn't want no part to Keith Thurman, and I understand why. Because at that point in time, he was coming off of a Mayweather fight, and he was thinking, well, I'm Robert Guerrero. Me fight Keith Thurman, but the stakes are higher now. Keith Thurman has a belt, which also WBA are making their mandatories finally. That WBA would make him the #1 contender, meaning Robert Guerrero, if he was to win, for Floyd Mayweather's belt. Not saying Mayweather were fighting, but I'm just saying that would put him in line for that. But it's like this. I just don't see Robert Guerrero losing to a guy like Keith Thurman, not a guy who just last year was basically still somewhat of a prospect. That's just my personal opinion. But as far as boxing ability, yes, Keith Thurman has displayed it, up until this point right now. By the way, he's 24-0 with 21 KOs. He's displayed that, but at the same time, will he do that, or will he fold under pressure against Robert Guerrero? Now, we know Leonard Bundu is somewhat of an awkward fighter, yes, but still, there are concerns. There are legitimate concerns. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
You see, I want to take it back to a fighter called Diego Chavez, which I feel is Keith Thurman's best fighter, which he's faced. I mean, Diego Chavez... Yeah, cool. I think, with Diego Chavez, he's a fighter who faced Keith Thurman, and Keith Thurman knocked him out with a body shot. And I think beating an opponent like that really gave me a gauge on how good Keith Thurman is, because Diego Chavez, over the past few fights, Brandon Rios, a lot of people had Diego Chavez ahead in that fight before it was, you know, all that crap happened with the with Brandon Rios and the roly-polies that were taking place in that fight. And then you look at Diego Chavez and Timothy Bradley. I mean, Timothy Bradley now, how good is Bradley? Bradley is an exceptional fighter, but I mean, draw again with Diego Chavez. So I mean, how good is Diego Chavez? And then we look at Soto Carlos, who banged out Andre Berto. He banged out Andre Berto, and Keith Thurman took him out as well in good fashion. And I don't think Keith Thurman is that green as people are saying, because Keith Thurman, he's faced a lot of fighters. I mean, he's been in the ring since he was very young. He's trained with Winky Wright, and then in the ring, in actual professional fights. I mean, you look at him, who he's faced. He's been on. He's been a very good ranked amateur as well. So I mean, you take all these things into consideration. I think Keith Thurman's had plenty of sparring. He's built himself up slowly. And do I think Robert Guerrero is the best fighter he's faced? Yes, I do think Robert Guerrero is the best fighter he's faced. But I don't think it's I don't think Robert Guerrero is in a totally different league to the likes of Diego Chavez. I think that Diego Chavez is a very underrated fighter. He can box and he can bang, and Keith Thurman beat him. So I think like you put his Soto Caras into the mix as well, and you mix Julio Diaz, who then Sean Potter, Amir Khan, mix these fights all on a similar level. Yeah, Robert Guerrero is the best, but I mean stylistically, Keith Thurman should win this fight comfortably. I mean, Keith Thurman in his last 6 fights got hit less than Floyd Mayweather Jr. So, I mean, if he does 70% of what Mayweather Jr. did to Robert Guerrero, and then you add in the punching power, I can't see how... Because I really see some similarities with Keith Thurman and Floyd Mayweather in terms of the footwork, the way they move around the ring very quick. And I think Robert Guerrero's just going to struggle with that. I think he's going to... And I think when he feels the power as well on top of that, and the boxing, and it's just going to be way too much. And I don't think Keith Thurman is that green.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess what we're going to do is, have the final thoughts. And, I didn't address Diego Chavez. What I'm going to say is, let's give props and credit where credit is due. If you look at Keith Thurman's record for a boxing fan, if you understand, what like the rankings, and you understand, the opponents as far as who fought who and when, you look at a guy like Jan Zavek. Andre Berto fought Jan Zavek, and until he busted up his face, that fight was what was turned into be a very close fight, in which Zavek was getting very close, in my opinion, to maybe having a chance to defeat Andre Berto. You look at Diego Chavez at that point in time when Keith Thurman defeated him. Diego Chavez was undefeated, and I knew at that time, and a lot of underground fans knew, that Diego Chavez was very good. And as we see right now, where he was disqualified against Brandon Rios. Remember, he was on his way to winning that fight on the cards, and also, what he did against Timothy Bradley. He has that draw against Timothy Bradley, which is technically a win for a guy like Diego Chavez. So, you have to give the credit to the win over Jan Zavek. And remember, that was like 6 fights ago for Keith Thurman. That was a very credible fight. When you look at Diego Chavez, look at it now, very credible fight. The only guy right now to clearly defeat Diego Chavez, and that's out of it's Keith Thurman, Brandon Rios, and Timothy Bradley. That's crazy. When you look at Jesus Soto Caras, we all know, what was that? Andre Berto. He was coming off of that. Very credible fight. Good step up. And then when you look at, Leonard Bundu was very highly ranked, by the IBF at that point in time. And Julio Diaz, who had the 2 fights with Sean Porter. And also when he knocked your boy Amir Khan all around the ring. Just my own personal opinion. He should have won that fight. So Keith Thurman's record is credible, to a boxing fan that understands the sport and watches boxing to an extent of a guy like myself who watches the Box Nation cards, the Sky Sports, the ITVs, things like that. But still, I'm not going to be sold until March the 8th, 2015. I'm just not. Not yet. I'm a guy that I go with experience. So when it comes to UK fans, for example, I had to go, with Carl Froch over George Groves 2. I went with Carl Froch over George Groves 1. I even agreed that George Groves was going to be stopped later on in the fight. When it came to Floyd Mayweather versus Saul Canelo Alvarez, I didn't get caught up in all that. And, people said I had a questionable relationship when it came to Floyd Mayweather. But at the same time, I gave props to whereas it say, Floyd is more experienced than Saul Canelo Alvarez. He's going to outbox him. You give credit where credit is due. You prove yourself, then I give credit. I'm a boxing fan. I can't, I got to call it like I see it. But I'm T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I'm going to hand it over to Be Real TV to close out the show. Please subscribe to both channels, Be Real TV. The first link in the description box. Also on RealCombatMedia.com, we're running a poll for Mayweather versus Pacquiao. That's the second link in the description box. Also below that, you're going to have the link to the Be Real TV exclusive interview with Keith one-time Thurman. The link will be right in the description box. So, people think that I just type that stuff and put that there. Listen, I put that there for you to click it. So therefore, on your phone, you click where it says, like show more or the little arrow. Then you see the little links light up. You click them. But definitely, you need to check out that Keith Thurman interview. Seriously. Link right in the description box. T Street Controversy. Hand it over to Be Real TV. T Street Controversy Live.
Yeah, just finishing up, guys. I think Keith Thurman versus Robert Guerrero. I don't think it's going to be a difficult fight for Keith. I think it's going to be Keith Thurman by quite a wide margin. I don't think Robert Guerrero is going to be able to touch Keith Thurman. In my interview with Keith Thurman said that he's not going to let the Leonard Bundu fight play on his head. But we'll have to see on fight night. It might play into his head. He might want to take it a bit forward. But I think, he also said that he's going to tap the body and see how the body's doing of Robert Guerrero. But I think with Robert Guerrero's CrossFit stuff he's doing, I think with his core building strong, and I'm not a fan of what he does with the CrossFit stuff. I don't think it's for boxers. I think it's more for MMA fighters. I think that it decreases your speed a little bit, but I do think that Keith Thurman is going to attack the body. He said in the interview with him that he's going to attack the body. He said that to me. He said that he's going to use his feet when he needs to use his feet, and he's going to do a variety of things. I don't think he's going to be in the back foot all night. I don't think Robert Guerrero has the ability to knock Keith Thurman flush out. I don't think Keith Thurman is going to stay there on the inside getting banged up by Robert Guerrero and get his face bust up. I don't think Keith Thurman is that stupid. He's a very smart fighter. I see him using his feet and potentially getting a stoppage of Robert Guerrero for the first time, but I know for a fact Keith Thurman is going to win this by a wide margin. Make sure you subscribe to T Street Controversy Live, and make sure you please subscribe to Be Real TV, aka Be Real Boxing. We do interviews, we do analysis, we do everything top to bottom. Make sure you subscribe to both channels, US and UK. We'll be taking over, guys, in a bit.